G'day and welcome to ReDriven. Now, a true performance car isn't just about having heaps of power or just being really, really fast. It has to involve and inspire the driver. It has to become part of who we are and fuel our love of driving. And the cars on this list just don't do that. They're either just utterly crap or they were marketed to us as being true performance cars in one way or another, and they just aren't. A quick rule for this list: to be considered, these cars have to be internationally and readily available and somewhat affordable. So while we would love to argue that a Bugatti Veyron is immensely overrated, chances are there aren't too many of those sitting in your local used car dealership, and we might be doing a top 5 most overrated supercars list down the track. Anyway, here are our top 5 overrated performance cars. And I know we're going to cop a bit of hate for this list, so our apologies, but too bad. In 5th place and representing hot hatches that have all the warmth of a Russian winter, it's the Mark IV Volkswagen Golf GTI. Volkswagen tried to tell us that the Mark IV GTI was some firecracker of a Golf with performance so hot it could pop corn. That's not a joke, they literally did, because here's a clip of a Mark IV GTI TV ad. The Mark IV GTI is one of the most maligned cars in history, and it very nearly ruined the iconic GTI name. With increased weight over the Mark III GTI, yet around about the same horsepower, and body dynamics seemingly tuned more for comfort and luxury rather than performance, the quite dull Mark IV GTI provided minimal performance thrills. In the Mark IV GTI's defense, Volkswagen did attempt to remedy this underwhelming package in 2002 by turning up the power to 132 kilowatts. But look, even then, to many, it still failed to live up to the reputation that the Mark I and II generations forged so convincingly. But did Volkswagen learn from their mistakes? Well, we did a Mark VII GTI review video recently, and the link is just up there. In 4th place, it's a variant of a car that actually isn't too bad. It's the Maserati Gran Turismo Stradale. Okay, we know what you're thinking. How the hell did a Maserati Gran Turismo make this list? Look, well, bear with us. While the various Gran Turismo variants do the whole luxurious yet fast Grand Touring thing really well, the Stradale drops the ball, especially in terms of being overrated. What's the problem with it? Well, by stiffening the suspension, ripping out the rear seats, much of the sound deadening, and quite a few of the luxuries, and making it all track-focused, suddenly it's a very compromised Grand Tourer. But because it's still a Gran Turismo and therefore a Grand Tourer, only a bit lighter and more powerful, it's very compromised at being the track-worthy hardcore sports car Maserati are trying to convince us that it is. So you're left with a car that's pretty bloody average at everything it set out to be. It's no longer a great Grand Tourer, and it's never going to be a true track-worthy performance car. But hey, at least it's insanely expensive. And this is the other problem with the Stradale. Because it's so expensive and it's rare in terms of Gran Turismos, it feels like the majority of owners are more obsessed with cruising and posing down cafe and nightclub strips rather than exploring what their Stradale can do in terms of real performance. Both the car and, unfortunately, many of its owners are just pretenders. In 3rd place, this car's backstory is far more thrilling than actually driving it. It's the Delorean. Firstly, let's talk about performance, or the lack of. If Doc Brown could get this thing to hit 88 miles per hour in a car park, forget hailing him as a genius for executing time travel, he must be one of the all-time great engine tuners because these things are bloody slow. In the automatic version, we're talking 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in a leisurely 10.5 seconds. And to put that into perspective, a Toyota FJ Cruiser is just slightly faster. Creator John Delorean had the world expecting scintillating performance from this stainless steel-bodied rear-engine design masterpiece, but instead what was delivered was an Irish-built disaster powered by an asthmatic French V6 mated to a clunky old 5-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic gearbox. Then you had all the problems with suspension, the fact that even from the factory the wheel alignment was completely wrong, and the DeLorean's truly terrible build quality. Yes, they look incredibly cool, but if it wasn't for Marty McFly, these things would have vanished into irrelevance years ago. In 2nd place, and this one may genuinely put my life in jeopardy, it's the Tesla Model S P100D. Now listen, Tesla fanboys, before you go putting a hit out on me, just hear me out. Yes, in a straight line, the P100D is an absolute weapon. If you want to blow pretty much everything else away in terms of drag racing, buy yourself a P100D. Just make sure you limit your drag racing escapades to only a few runs, because after that it'll overheat and you'll be left with range anxiety and looking for a supercharger so you can actually make it home. But that's not why the P100D is overrated. See, as I said at the start of the video, a true performance car isn't just about having loads of power or being just fast. A true performance car has to involve and inspire its driver, and the P100D just doesn't. The steering is numb and lifeless, it's bloody heavy, and the chassis setup doesn't do a great job at hiding its substantial weight. Yes, it is fast, but it never feels truly alive. It's just a clinical scalpel of a tool that'll throw its occupants at the horizon like a soulless psychopath until it overheats. It's fast, but it's not a true performance car. If you want an EV that is just as quick, but is actually engaging to drive and inspires its driver, at the moment, it'll be wearing a Porsche badge. Plus, the Tesla might be having a few quality issues. Just click on the video up there to see what I mean. Guys, before we get to first place, can you please do us a favor and hit those like, subscribe, and bell icon buttons? And after the video, go and check us out on all the socials. Okay, taking out this list, and it's another car that's probably going to make us pretty unpopular. It's the Ford Mustang. Yes, the Mustang is one of the all-time iconic motor vehicles, and yes, they're incredibly popular, being one of the highest selling sports cars of all time. But considering the hype and the popularity, pretty much any Mustang made between 1973 and up to 2015 is just simply overrated. But why? Well, the Mustang has been through 6 generations, with only the first gen retaining its good looks. All of the others have aged about as well as Lindsay Lohan. And this current post-2015 generation, although good looking, it's still too young to tell whether it will still be good looking in 10 years' time. Overall, the Mustang has failed to age gracefully, and even Mustang fans are usually only fanatic about either Mustangs from the 1960s or the new Mustang. Everything in between is just bland, boring, and old. When compared to other 70s cars like the BMW 3.0 CSL, the Jaguar XJS, and even the Toyota Celica, or 80s cars such as the Datsun 240Z, the Porsche 911, Audi Quattro, and the BMW E30 M3, it becomes clear just how forgettable the second and third generation Mustang was in that period. These comparisons go on into the 90s and the noughties, but the point is, although the Mustang name is legendary, most of the actual Mustang cars are just not. A true performance car needs a certain level of refinement in terms of overall driving and handling dynamics, and these generations of Mustang, they've just never had that. They're loud and brash, and look, unless they've been heavily modified, they generally just handle like a trolley full of shopping. The Mustang's reputation was sold to us as being Ford's true performance car, but in reality were built more for just attempting to look cool or for burning rubber, which is why they take out this list. Look, don't get us wrong, the first Mustangs from the 1960s are absolute stunners, although from a driving aspect, they're also not really deserving of their accolades. And the current generation Mustang is a work of art and an absolute joy to drive. But excluding a few heavily tuned examples, everything in between those is just an overrated disappointment. Guys, as always, look, thank you so much for watching, and hey, what did you think of the list? Please let us know in the comments below. Oh, and can you remember, hit those like, subscribe, and bell icon buttons. It does help us out immensely. And go and check us out on the socials. See you next time. It's the Delorean. And the DeLorean's truly terrible Maserati are trying so hard to convince us that it, oh wow. Mark 1 and 2 generations, Sean Connery's back. And readily. Anyway, here are our. All the warmth of a Russian warmth. This underwhelming package. I'm an underwhelming.